You. I want to say hello to everybody here, everybody online, and I'm going to jump into God's Word today. My name is Greg. If we've not had a chance to meet, I'm going to share some scripture with you, and I had this thought recently. I was really sobered up by the trust that you guys give me, not only to preach the Bible to you and God's Word, but to pick the subject every weekend. Like, you let me do that. And I was thinking, it just kind of hit me in a fresh way. I was thinking, that's a lot of trust on your part, and I never want to mess that up. Like, I want to get it as right as I can. And I want to actually tell you how I decide what I'm going to share. I spend a lot of time in the Bible. I spend quite a bit of time in there academically because I want to understand it as good as I can so that I can rightly divide the word of truth. So I'm not saying something about the Bible that it's not actually saying. So I try to learn that. Also, I listen. I listen to people. I listen to God. I try to really listen to the text, listen to myself, listen as much as I can, and then pray and ask the Lord to show me and lead me in the right direction. And sometimes the topics are things I'm excited to talk about, and then sometimes this topic I'm not excited to talk about. It's not the one I would have picked if it was about my flesh or my desire. And this weekend is one of those topics. I'm going to talk to you about forgiveness. And it's not my favorite subject because I'm not very good at it. I feel like I need to say that. Like, I know you're not asking me to tell you that, and I'm not trying to be self-deprecating. I'm being honest. Like, I'm not good at forgiveness, and I gotta have to tell you that because I need to have integrity, okay, as I'm preaching this message. I'm pretty good at being bitter, actually. I'm just gifted, like, at that. Like, I can hang on to a grudge like you can't imagine. Pretty stubborn about it, actually. And we're in a series we're calling Well Done. Okay, so the idea of a life well done, a life well lived. What does that mean? How does that work? And I've lived bitter before, and it's not much fun. It doesn't give you what you think it's gonna give you. I can testify to that. I'm getting better at forgiveness, but I'm learning a lot about it. And as I've made progress in learning how to forgive, I found it really has enhanced my quality of life. It's made my life better. It's fortified my character. It's done a lot. So I'm eager to share that with you, but I don't think I'm very good at this. I'm going to start and operate under the assumption today that everyone in this room and watching online is unified in the belief that we all know that we need to forgive, okay? Most of the time you hear a sermon on forgiveness, they spend the whole sermon telling you, hey, you need to do this. And if you need that sermon, they're out there. If you want to preach it to yourself, just go Google Bible verses, forgiveness, and you'll get a bunch that'll just tell you to forgive. Today, what I want to do is take the lion's share of my time, and I want to teach you how to forgive. I'm going to assume that you think it's a good thing to do. And I want to teach you how to forgive. And then at the end, I want to share, how will I know if I'm actually forgiving or not? Okay? I want to start with the idea, the concept of healing. The concept of healing starts with the need for healing, which starts with brokenness. Something was broken. We know what this looks like physically, but we know what it looks like emotionally. You're broken, and you start the process of healing. If you're courageous enough and wise enough to say, I need to heal, then you enter into that process. And that process, it means you get some help, and it means you get a doctor, and it means you get somebody to converse with, and you got to learn some new stuff, and then you got to give it time. Time is a contributor to healing. And so there's a timeline. And if I'll do the healthy things and I'll be patient, over time, I will change the suffix from ing to ed. I went from broken, I'm not just healing, now I'm healed. But if it's a really bad wound, a devastating injury, it might take you a long time. I found forgiveness kind of is the same vibe. You start off and you make a decision. I'm going to start forgiving, and if I'll stay with it, It's gonna take me a while, especially if it was a serious offense, a major attack. Somebody gave you a good reason to hold a grudge. They gave you a good reason to hold a grudge. If I will forgive and keep forgiving and I will take the journey, you see, because forgiving is a decision, but it's also a direction. It's a direction. I'm gonna start moving in the direction of healing. And if I'll do that long enough and I'll stay with it, then I can change the suffix to en. Now this person is forgiven. What is the journey of forgiving to forgiven? What does that look like? Jesus says something in Luke 6, 27, 28. He says, to those of you who will listen, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who hurt you. Sometimes when I read the Bible, I'm tempted to want to chalk certain things up to just Jesus being Jesus. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you're Jesus, you know? Okay, this is crazy talk. Like, bless those who curse you. Okay, love your enemies. Come on, dude. Pray for those who do harm to this is Jesus being Jesus. But you need to understand, there were some things that were just Jesus being Jesus, which is why he didn't teach around it and build doctrine around it. Like there's not a teaching around, here's what you ought to do when you walk on water. Because that was Jesus being Jesus, all right? Jesus was out on water, defying the laws of physics. He wasn't expecting you to do the same. Hey, when you turn water into wine, here's what you ought to do. He wasn't doing all that because he wasn't expecting you to do that. But when he talks about this is a teaching that he does expect us to do. And over the years, there have been times I just set the bar way lower than it should be. You know, my wife's going like, Greg, when are you going to do that? I'm like, I'm not Jesus. Come on, I'm not Jesus. Well, when Jesus is teaching you and telling you to do something, there are some things that aren't just Jesus being Jesus. Jesus is saying, no, I want you to go and live accordingly. This is how you're supposed to behave and what you're supposed to do. And this is one of those things. And he says, pray for those who hurt you. Have you ever tried to pray for somebody you don't like, or, you hear a sermon about that, pray for your enemies, and you're like, all right, and so has anybody ever attempted this? Okay, like okay, more of you guys than other services, thank you. Well, other services, like one person, it's like, yeah, I tried it one time, if you've ever tried to pray for an enemy, it's just like, Lord, I don't know, help Johnny scumbag, God, you know Susie Gossip Face, I don't know, bless her or something. I don't even know. What does that even mean? You ever try to pray for somebody? If you've ever had somebody you're trying to forgive and you can't, or there's an impediment. I've been trying to forgive this person for 10 years. I'm trying to forgive this person forever. Like, I can't do it. If you're gonna forgive someone you've not been able to forgive, you're going to have to see something that you've not been able to see. Have you ever heard the term seeing is believing? Okay, I know sometimes there's part of our faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen. So there's some parts of our faith that happen when we see when we believe without seeing, and we operate without seeing. But there is a part of belief sometimes that happens instinctively, intuitively, when you see something new. If you look at your life, don't do it now because we got to stay tracking with me, but maybe make a note later, like sit down and think about beliefs that have changed for you. Ways you think differently now than you used to think. You used to be stalwart. You used to be a proponent of this thing, and you thought this about these people and this concept and this principle, and you thought, but you don't think that way now. If you track it back, it probably comes back to a moment that you saw something you'd never seen before. And when you saw something you'd never seen before, you started to think things you hadn't thought before, which means you had a deeper understanding, and that deeper understanding led you to a new belief. So if you're going to forgive something that seems unforgivable now, It's gonna start with you seeing something you've never seen before. And if you go, yeah, I know I'm supposed to pray for my enemies, I'm supposed to pray for the one who offended me or hurt me or attacked me, what would I even pray? Jesus teaches us in Luke 6 that we need to do it, but he shows us how to do it in Luke 23:34. Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing. And the soldiers gambled for his clothing by throwing dice. Famous verse, this is Jesus on the cross. Father, now I want you to think about this through the lens of Luke 6 when he said, pray for those who do harm to you. Pray for those who hurt you. What is Father, forgive them, but a prayer? Father, forgive them. That's what he prayed. Father, forgive them. And then he says this, for they know not what they do. They don't know what they're doing. And that second part of that statement shows Jesus' visual. What he was able to see something in these Roman soldiers that were putting him to death. He was able to see something that was not visible to the naked eye. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. They don't know what they're doing. What do you mean they don't know what they're doing? They're killing you, dude. They know what they're doing. See, it's well documented in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, what they did. What they did was crucified Jesus, and crucifixion was not only capital punishment, it was designed for humiliation, to try to deter any revolutionary. So Jesus, his claim was he's king of the Jews. He's king of the Jews. Well, we'll see if you're king of the Jews. So what do? They open up his body. They cat of nine tails, rip his flesh. You can see his organs. You can see his bones. He's as feeble as you can be. He has physically lost his power. And so in this beat up, abused, weak, feeble state, they drape a robe on him. And then they hand him a scepter. They take the scepter and beat him with it. They beat him with the scepter, give it back. Hey, we're gonna crown him. Come on, bring him out, royal. Come out in his robe, okay? Everybody. They do it publicly. We're gonna crown him. You ready? Crown of thorns. Blood going down his face. They pull his beard out, the Bible says, with their hands. They pluck out his beard. Why? To a Jewish man, it was part of his culture to have a beard. And so they're pulling his culture out. They're humiliating him. And then the Bible says they start to mock him. Hail, King of the Jews. What's up, King? Hey, King, everybody see the king? Look how powerful he is. King, oh, where's your queen at? Where's your queen, King? Hey, Rob. King needs a court jester. Come on out. Come on. Oh, what's up? I thought you were king of the Jews. Come on, say it with your chest. You're the king of the Jews, right? They begin to mock him. What do you mean they don't know what they do? They knew what they were doing. Forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they do. Jesus understood about these Roman soldiers is they didn't know what they were doing, but they knew what they were doing, but they didn't know what they were doing. Here's what he saw. Because if you see an Easter play, or you watch The Passion of the Christ, or you watch a Jesus film or something, the Roman soldiers usually are two-dimensional characters. They're just evil. It might as well be Cruella de Vil, right? They're just two-dimensional. They're just evil. And Jesus, yet, he's like, they don't know what they're doing. What's he talking about? Here's what Jesus could see. I want you to imagine. You and I, we grew up in Rome, or we grew up in the Roman government. We are fifth generation Roman soldier. Great-grandpa was a Roman soldier, grandpa, dad, everybody was Roman soldiers. And we have been groomed and trained and taught, and we pledge allegiance, and we know the national anthem, and the whole thing is about our vision, the vision of Rome, and the ideals, and the principles, and the virtues, and the values, and everything that comes with Rome, and the vision of what we're gonna be to the world, and to protect. And by the way, our lives, our culture is so violent. We've become desensitized to it. I mean, you know history. I don't have to tell you about it. You know what they did in the Colosseum? They fed people to animals. You know what they did? It was violent. And it wasn't just the big Colosseum. They had amphitheaters in different cities where they would do the same thing, violence. When they wrestled, they didn't wrestle for points. They wrestled to the death. This is that they would hang people on the side of the road to make a public. They were desensitized to violence. These men were men of war, and yet what they were taught and they were trained is that this is about protecting the most important things. It's God and country. It's God. They would feel about a foreign Jewish revolutionary king of the Jews about how we would feel about a terrorist that would want to come take what we love. And so here they are. And then by the way, that day they go to work and it's this. Hey, you're not going to believe who we're dealing with today. What? This brother thinks he's king of the Jews. Oh, no, this dude thinks he's God. What? His followers said he walked on water. What are we talking about? They said he walked on water. People believe that? Yeah, dude. He's got a following, massive, huge following, thousands of people. Listen, man, this is what they say. They're saying that 5,000 people showed up to hear him talk and they all got hungry and he takes 5 loaves, 2 fish and feeds everyone. These people believe that? Yes. They're claiming he raised his buddy from the dead. This guy Lazarus. That's who we're taking out today. This guy's nuts. These people are nuts. In fact, we're not just gonna do Rome a favor, we're gonna do the Jews a favor to get this sleight of hand huckster out of our way. Not today. Oh, we'll see what kind of king he is. Forgive them, Father. They don't know what they're doing, but they know, but they don't know. Peter, who's like Jesus' friend, confidant, he's mostly known for denying Jesus. If you've ever had to forgive a backstabbing friend, you know, it's one thing to have the Romans who will pluck your beard out. It's another thing when it's someone who's like. But Jesus didn't get short-sighted with Peter. Forgive him. He doesn't know what he's doing. Let's unpack that. Matthew 16, Jesus prophesies his own death. He said, hey, I'm gonna go to Jerusalem. I'm gonna be handed over to the elders. I'm gonna be handed over to the chief priests. They're gonna do horrific things to me, and then I'm gonna die. And Peter says, don't say that. He says, heaven forbid. No. Peter says what you and I would say to a friend who went to negative town. We would say to a friend who was going doomsday. No, that's not you, not now, not here. Don't confess that. Don't say that. Don't speak that in the world. That's not truth. That's not going to happen to you. And Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. Why? Because Jesus knew his purpose and he realized that the temptation to circumvent the cross was a problem for him. It's what Satan came at him with in the wilderness. It's what Peter said, oh, well, let's circumvent the cross. It's what Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane. If there's any way we can circumvent the cross, if there's a plan B, I'm up for it. He said, get behind me. But what's Peter doing? Peter's saying this because he loves Jesus. In fact, he loved Jesus so much, in John 18, he pulls out a sword and cuts a man's ear off because he put his sword where his mouth was. He loved Jesus. And yet in the moment, in the heat of the moment, he denies him 3 times. Forgive him, Father. He didn't know what he's doing. But yeah, he did know what he was doing. He did it 3 times. If you do something 3 times, you knew what you were doing. By the way, read the word. Jesus told him he was going to do it 3 times. And he gave him a timeline. It's only a few hours ago. Jesus said, dude, 3 times you're going to get before the rooster crows. Man, we're getting close to the rooster crowing. You ought to be ready. And he wasn't. 3 times he denies Jesus. Forgive him, Father. He doesn't know what he's doing. But he knew what he was doing, but he didn't know what he was doing. But he knew, but he didn't know. The Pharisees who, yeah, there's some petty things about the Pharisees. Yes, there were some things about the Pharisees in that they were losing influence, and so they didn't like Jesus for that reason. But if you really look at the Pharisees, a big thing, what they felt, or what they considered to be a righteous indignation, because Jesus was breaking the God-given law. This came from God. This is divine. Not just the 10 Commandments, but the Torah and all of this is given to us, we believe, by God. And here's Jesus doing a cannonball right in the middle of all this stuff, and he's messing with it, so it feels like an abomination. It feels like this is sacrilegious. So you're attacking our law, you're threatening our influence, and then, by the way, don't forget, we are under Roman rule, and Rome won't just kill you if they think you're a revolutionary. Genocide is an option. So they kill. Forgive them, Father. They don't know what they do, but they know, but they don't know. If you're gonna be able to forgive somebody you've not been able to forgive, you're going to have to see something you've never seen before. And Jesus intended for you to understand this wasn't just Jesus being Jesus. This wasn't just Jesus speaking in really high platitudes in Luke 6. This is Jesus showing it at the lowest moment of his life, at the most difficult moment of his life. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. To forgive. I'll tell you why I don't like this message. I'll just tell you why I don't like this message. Because there's a part of me that's really, frankly, afraid to be vulnerable enough to be known as the forgiving guy. If I develop a reputation, you know that Greg Ford, man, dude's really a great forgiver. I don't know that I want that reputation. It makes me feel really vulnerable. Because my fear is that if you think I'll just forgive like no one's business, that you'll walk all over me. There's a part of me that wants you to be a little afraid. Watch how you handle me. You better look both ways before you cross me. She just got it. That's a bar. Write it down. You better look both. I want you to think twice. I want you to think thrice. I don't want you to just come at me. That's another bar, by the way. I don't want you to just come at me and just think you can attack me, because I'm gonna let you know, you come in a certain way to somebody you don't think will hit you back. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I'm like, do I want the reputation as the forgiving guy? I'm telling you, there's a lot of virtues I wrestle with. Fruit of the Spirit, patience. You know, I'm like, I struggle. I do. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm dead serious. Like, you know, it's like, do I want people going, you know, that Greg Ford, he's so long-suffering. You know, they're like, what do you want people to say about you at the end of your life? You know, when you're in the casket, do I want to go, he was so long-suffering, you know? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, get the stuff done, you know? Get it done now. Like, I'm patient as long as you get it done by the deadline. Huh? We got a few bosses in the house? Anybody in charge of, anybody have any responsibility around here that depends on other folks? It's like, oh, she won't care. She's patient. She's long-suffering, you know? She'll forgive you. Oh, the most forgiving lady. No, I'll clap back at you. Yeah, I'll bite back, you know? Yeah, I got a good counterpunch. You might be surprised. I can roll that thing and come back at you. You might be surprised. And so the idea, do I want to be the forgiveness guy? Two big things jump out about this moment in Jesus' life. One is what we learn from Jesus is he embodies flesh and all of the temptations with humanity, yet he never crosses the line into sin. So his holiness wins out. And in his holiness, he had the wisdom to know, no matter how attacked I am, my flesh is vulnerable to attack. My flesh is vulnerable to bitterness, resentment, hatred, and self-centeredness. All of that comes with me clinging, allowing this wound or this attack. If I cling to it and I ingest it, now it becomes something that will affect my character. So we see Jesus proving to us that it's possible, even when you're attacked, even when you're offended, an offense comes at you, you don't just have to automatically respond with a sin-filled, emotionally charged response and to just take the bait and go there. Jesus shows what it's like, by the way, to operate in freedom, because he knew that bitterness, if bitterness would form in his heart, it was going to create sinful bondage. And so Jesus had the freedom to forgive, and in so doing, that freedom kept him free. It kept him free. If you think bitterness is going to make you safer, you're believing a terrible lie. It is a terrible lie. And although you might send a message to the world with your vibe, it will create an internal destruction inside of you that will create a bondage that's more intertwined than you even know. So Jesus shows this, and his character would not let him, even though he got his beard ripped out, even though he was mocked, even though he was unjustly accused and crucified. He would not let that happen. Not because he was becoming a doormat, but because he stayed focused on purpose, which is, by the way, that's something to think about. Because, okay, think about Jesus. It's interesting to note, Jesus, when it comes time to defend himself, he's on trial, he's on the witness stand, he doesn't utter a word, he doesn't talk, he doesn't say anything, he's quiet. He goes to the cross, he's quiet the whole time, and he gets to the end and he forgives out loud. He's quiet at the accusation, he's quiet at the suffering, and yet he forgives out loud. And what's interesting is when they were accusing him, they're going, "Who are you? Who are you?" And instead of getting defensive, he decides to answer with his action. I'm the one who forgives. I'm the one who will live my purpose. He understood that in that situation, in that season, his assignment was to die. His assignment was to take the shame. His assignment was to do what he did. So he kept his mouth shut and he got all the way to the end. And at the very end of his life, at the end of your life, when you're the most honest, Father, forgive them. He connected Luke 6 to Luke 23 for our sake. Forgive them, for they don't know what they do. They don't know what they do. He said it out loud and he showed who he was. But Jesus' entire life, he had an ability to either talk or not talk, to do or not do, all focused on his purpose. Because there was a time that the Pharisees, Jesus talked back to them. You're a brood of vipers. He stood up to them. You're a brood of vipers. You're whitewashed tombs. You care about the outside. The inside is full of dead bones. That was a different season, still connected to the same purpose. There was a time he talked to Peter after Jesus is resurrected. And Peter had made this big claim, "Jesus, I love you more than these. And they may turn on you, not me." And then he denies them 3 times. Jesus goes to Peter, aligned to purpose in the right season. He said, "Peter, do you love me more than these? Peter, do you love me more than these? Peter, do you love me more than these?" See, there was a time to be quiet, there was a time to talk, but he did none of it out of taking the bitterness trap. He stayed aligned to his purpose and fulfilled his purpose by sharing with us a transcendent principle of freedom. Freedom comes through forgiveness. I will not take it, no matter how safe it makes me feel. It's a lie. You're believing a very dangerous lie if you think bitterness and the anger that comes with bitterness and hatred, and it will make you self-centered. And then who's free and who's in bondage? How do I know if I've forgiven somebody? I've struggled with this. My wife's been a great help with me with this because I externally process. I've got some people who have given me good reason to hold a grudge, people who I have not wanted to forgive. And I'm like, how in the world will I know if I've actually forgiven? I'm like, what, if I like them? So I was like, I don't like them. I still don't like them. Okay, I've been forgiving them, okay? I'm somewhere, okay, in this timeline. I don't know where I'm at, but I just know I still don't like them. And if, to be honest, if that's the litmus test, I'm probably never gonna forgive them because I don't think I'm ever gonna like. I cannot foresee a day that I'm like, let's get dinner. Hey, send me a selfie of your steaks. Like make sure put me in your Christmas card. Make sure you get me in your Christmas card list. I'd like to know how the year went. I don't see myself doing that. And I'm like, is that what it means? Is that what it means? Because there's some people who I just still don't like you. I don't want to be petty enough to unfriend you because I'm too classy for that. I just want to make you go. I want to hit that button that makes your stuff not come up anymore. I don't want to see it, Don't act like you have not done that. Don't you judge me. Don't you judge me. If you haven't done it, it's because you didn't know you could, okay? Some of you, they're like, if she posts one more, I swear, you can go and you can make them disappear online. It's incredible. It's incredible. They don't even know. You didn't have to unfriend them, so it didn't go there. But you're just like, I just don't want to see them anymore. I don't have anyone like, I know you guys have those type of people, so I'm here to serve you. How will I know? I'm gonna give you 4 things. These are things that I've learned myself, and these are things I've learned in listening to people who struggle with forgiveness as much as I do. The first is that that the offense or the attack or the trauma, over time, it becomes more of a reference point than a pain point. Becomes more of a reference point than a pain point. When we're back here in the healing process, it's painful. I can't even talk about it without getting mad. I can't talk about it without crying. I can't talk about it with having an emotional reaction. Over time, as I'm forgiving, and forgiveness and healing they're intertwined. If there's a forgiveness that needs to happen in your life, you will not fully heal until you forgive. I'm sorry, I know, it's just, you're like, but they gave me a good reason to be bitter. I know, I'm just telling you the truth. These are connected. And over time, if you'll walk through a healing, it will become less of a pain point and more of a reference point. I shared a story months ago of a friend of mine whose mother was murdered. She was stabbed to death. He knows where she was stabbed, how many times she was stabbed, the whole 9 yards. He's been in a process of healing and forgiving ever since, and he'll have good days and bad days, and there's some days that he imagines and plays the movie back in his mind and has a wave of anger, and so he's on the journey. Okay, is he ever gonna get to a place where he feels no pain about this scenario? Man, I think some things are are so intense and are so traumatic, so hurtful and so final, and so that I don't know that I'll say you'll never feel anything. He might, for the rest of his life, when he thinks about it, he might feel pain. But over time, if he'll take steps of forgiving and healing, and he'll allow the Lord to enter that in with him and have God show him stuff he never saw before, there will come a time that he'll feel less. It'll become more of a reference point. Hey, back in this year, this happened. There's some of you that can testify to this. There were some things that you went to not even being able to speak about it, to then you started to speak about it, but you couldn't get it finished, and then you finished it, and then you kept talking, and then eventually you were able to talk about it, and you didn't even break down. You were able to talk, and now you're being able to help people with it, because now you're talking to somebody and you're their voice, because they can't even talk about it yet. They can't even talk. In fact, they don't want to think about it yet, but now you're talking, and you're talking from a place of healing that like pulls them into healing. And so it becomes more of a reference point over time than a pain point. The second thing is revenge and retaliation become a non-issue. When somebody hurts you, retaliation and revenge are normal thoughts. Okay, I'm gonna go get my pound of flesh. I'm gonna figure that. Some of you even start making plans. Okay, they did this to me. You know what? I'm gonna get them. I will get them once I get some money. When I get a position, I'm gonna get. I'm telling you, I'm gonna go undercut. I'm gonna come in the back door. They're not even gonna know. They'll think I forgot about it. And I'm going. You start to hatch your plan and form your plan. And this is what I'm gonna do and how I'm gonna do it. And so that's normal. That's normal. But over time, as you forgive, like if you're still there, if you're still working to execute the retaliation plan, you need to get into forgiving, because the more that you do this, you start to lose the need to retaliate. You start to lose it. I don't need to do that anymore. So, and you know what? It's a progression. You're like, you know what? I used to want to kneecap them. Now I just want to talk about them. It's like, hey, you know, you're making progress, all right? We're somewhere on the timeline. We're moving in the right direction. The third one, and this is personal for me, is the discrepancy between when I say things like, I let it go, I really don't care, it doesn't bother me anymore. I say that with my mouth, but inside, I'm feeling a lot of emotion. Like if you got to think about your poker face while you're saying that, I'm healing, I'm forgiving, you know. I've messed this up. It's like, you know, I mean, I've forgiven him. I forgive him. Like, you know, I don't care anymore. I've forgiven him. I moved past it. You know what I mean? I've let it go. I've let it go. You know, I mean, I got no problem. I got no problem with him. I got no problem with her. You know what? I mean, it's, you know, it's in the past. I leave the past in the past. I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about them anymore. I've let it go. All right, I've let it go. I'm done with. Okay, bro. Maybe there's a little emotion in there still. May still be a wound that's closing up in there. Okay, there may be something being put back together, and yet that's part of the journey. That's part of the journey. And if I can let it go, I can let it go without the fact I'm still volatile. I'm still upset about it. And give yourself grace in that journey. But that's a part of it. And the third is this is tough. Can I accept the fact that God loves that person as much as He loves me? Or is that thought or concept in and of itself triggering? So just that concept that God might love them as much as He loves me. Just the thought, the suggestion is triggering and angering. If that's you, you're still in that process of healing. I'll give you this last thing. Unforgiveness is more intertwined in other areas of your life than you know. For example, it affects your ability to rest. We talked about rest a few weeks ago. Come to me, all you who are weary and you carry heavy burdens, and I'll give you rest. If you are harboring bitterness, it depletes you. It's draining you. It drains your energy. It burns hot and then burns. I mean, I'm telling you. So if you're going, man, I just can't figure it out. I can't figure out why I can't rest. I've been taking my day off. I've been taking trips. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. I'm walking around in nature. I'm whistling Dixie. I'm doing my favorite hobbies. And you're just like, I can't rest. You might want to go and look around and search a bit. Is there any unforgiveness and bitterness in your heart that might be draining you, making it so that you can't rest? It's intertwined in your worldview and how you view humanity as a whole. If you're one of these people starting to go, you know, everybody's nuts, everybody's a jerk, everybody's bad, you start painting mankind with broad strokes, and you start taking whole swaths of people and creating all these. A lot of times you track that down to one person. There is an unforgiveness, there's a bitterness in your heart that's clouding your lens on everyone. So people that had nothing to do with that are now getting painted with that broad brush that you're putting on them. It comes back to that. Here's the big one I found for me, how intertwined this is. My capacity for giving grace and forgiveness to other people is intertwined with my ability to give grace and peace to myself. I want you to think about this. Think about Jesus looking at the Roman soldier, not just seeing a two-dimensional character. He's like, this is a fifth-generation soldier that thinks he's protecting God and country, and he thinks he's doing a good thing, and he's been desensitized to violence, and he thinks I'm nuts, and he thinks the walking on water thing never happened, and he thinks I'm a sleight of hand huckster, and he thinks he's doing everyone, Jews, Gentiles, Romans, he thinks he's doing everyone a favor he doesn't get. To be able to look that many layers deep into that guy, if you can do that, you can do the same thing for you. And often people that keep the judgments and the bitterness and the offense on the surface for everybody else end up suffering because they can't do it for them and they can't do it for themselves. So they give themselves no grace. Friend, if you think bitterness is gonna lead you to being more protected and more safe, you have believed a dangerous lie. You're supposed to be free. You're supposed to be free. And you're not going to be free harboring bitterness and allowing that to erode It's toxic. So Jesus, with his final breaths before his crucifixion, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they do. It's interesting he was able to forgive people who had no remorse. The Romans had no, why would they have remorse? You look at someone on the surface, they have no remorse. If you see what Jesus saw, you know why they didn't have remorse. They thought they were doing everyone a favor. They thought they were doing the right thing. So Jesus' ability to see with those eyes gave him an ability to understand on a deeper level, to forgive on a different level. And today, I want you to set the bar higher in terms of your expectation of yourself and God. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you. And those same eyes, open the eyes of my heart, Lord. I want to see you, and I want to see you high and lifted up, but I got some other stuff I need you to show me too. And in so doing, with those eyes, God can show you something he wants you to see today. If you're willing to do that, it takes a lot of courage. If you're willing to do that today, I want to invite you to pray that prayer. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Lord, help me see what you want me to see. I invite you to stand up on your feet. Let's worship together.